Hello everyone, today we're taking a look at the Runcam Phoenix 2 Nano. Comes with this micro wiring harness, which goes into that connector right there, an adapter for larger mounting screws, lens cap, in a box that says Racer on the back, but it also says Phoenix 2 Nano, and no stickers. Of course it's a nano camera, so it's a 14 by 14 mounting pattern, with the adapter making it a 19mm mounting. From the lens to the back of the connector, I'm getting about 22.5 millimeters. It weighs just over 5 grams. With the connector, it weighs 5.5 grams. Jump into our light test, where we poke the sun right in the lens, and I have my little cloth. I think I'm gonna have to change that out when I do the distance for the light test to something more rigid. I think it flaps around a little bit too much, and depending upon the height of the sun, can be a little bit problematic for me, but I'll have to go back to the cloth, of course, to do it directly on the lens, that test you're looking at now. So we get to see how the camera responds to extreme light changes. Full sun flight, not cloud in the sky at least. I can't see any in the flight footage. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that looks like to be a 100% clear sky. That doesn't happen this time of year too much. So we get full sun flight. And while you're looking at this, a few of the specs, this does come with a half-inch sensor, which we're now starting to see as becoming a bit of a standard. It also touts that it does better in low light, which we will be seeing here in a little bit. A 7G glass lens. They actually compare it to the Runcam Micro Eagle on their site for less digital shimmer. Of course, if you've already looked at the site, you can see these things for yourself. The wires on that wiring harness, they're very, very small, and it's hard for me to tell for certain, but I do think that those are the plastic-coated wiring. They don't feel as flexible and as pliable as a silicone-based wiring harness does, or wire does. And that connector concerns me a bit. If you were to smash that connector, can we get to the solder pads, or does it just have little pins back there that we have to then solder to? If you've been around with the hobby for a while, you probably don't have that connector just laying around, so that would be one that you'd have to acquire if you were happen to smash that connector and need a new either connector or wiring harness. The horizontal resolution, as it has on the website, is 1000 TV lines, and it has an M8 lens with a field of view as 155 degrees. It is switchable between 4.3 and 16:9, so if you have some AOMWay goggles, or if you use a visor that has a real wide screen, you can switch out the view for that. It does have the ability to flip the image, so if you need to mount upside down, because the connector's in the way. That's one thing I've always run into, at least back in the day when we used to use traditional stacks, is sometimes you needed the connector to be at the bottom so you could get some of that camera angle that you're looking for. The lux on it isn't as low as others. It touts a low lux or illumination of 001 or 0.001. So that's going to come to play here as we get later on. We do have 3 modes, and you'll get to see the settings. It's color, black and white, EXT, and auto. I have yet to find a reason to use black and white, at least for FPV purposes. Maybe there's a reason if you're using these things as a security camera or something of that nature, because when you move the camera when you're in black and white, and this is across all these cameras that I've been testing, but if you move the camera when you're in the black and white mode, it kind of smears. It doesn't look like it's got a real-time display to it. It kind of feels like there's ghosting or smearing of all the images. So I can't see that being very useful, but if you have found a use for black and white that isn't static, I'd be sure interested to know what that is. It does not come with a control board or a control cable, so if you want to change the settings, you'll need to already have one of those, or you'll need to get one of your own. The power input that it can accept goes from 5 volts all the way up to 36 volts, so you should be able to run just about this camera in just about any setup that you're using for FPV purposes, at least. And I guess maybe not if you're using 12S. I've seen a few 12S thumbnails recently. So tell me what you think of the view. I think I've got some noise in my DVR that's on board that's recording this flight, so I have ordered a couple more. I actually thought about taking one of them that I've got that's spare. It's not technically a spare because I use it in camera comparison videos, and putting it in here, but I just think I've got a problem with this particular one, so please forgive a little bit of the noise that you're seeing. It's probably coming through my DVR or something else going on in the stack. I need to troubleshoot that and get that sorted out. Hopefully you find this video at least somewhat useful, barring that noise that we're getting in the video. We've seen that on the last one as well. I can't remember if we saw it on the Caddx Ratel back then when I did that. But I think we've flown in and out of the shadows. We took a look at the neighbor's garage doors to see if there's any lens distortion or fisheye, those things that we oftentimes need to grade or to diagnose to see if it's for us or not. Let's look at a cloudy flight before we get to that low light performance. So it is springtime here, and we have a few storms roll through every now and again, and I happen to catch a break to where this one was not raining yet. It rained later on the evening, so we do get to see what the camera does and how it responds to a real overcast day. Some of you I know have noted in the comment section that this has been pretty valuable for you in taking a look at the camera, because many of your days may look like this. I'm not for sure if it's specific regions in the US and this time of season, or if it's UK or some other continent or country, but I haven't asked those questions, I don't believe, or if I have, I don't recall the answers. So this is pretty fortunate that we get to have this time. Sometimes I have to wait up to a week to where I can actually get an overcast day and capture it without rain. In the previous review, I think I had rain and then it stopped or it slowed down, what have you, and then I thought I had to end the flight a little bit prematurely because I felt a drop on myself, so I thought it was about to start raining, and I didn't want to lose my quad because it is not conformal coated for those rainy days. Circle the neighborhood as I typically do, going up and down the sidewalks, being careful to make sure, especially this time with everybody being at home, that I don't have people on the sidewalks. You do see that there's a walker in a red shirt on the sidewalk, so I have to note that and kind of stay out of that way. I also sit right on the porch so that I can hear any cars coming or any activity that might be happening within earshot. So I tend to travel in kind of circles, either one way or another, to make sure that anything that might be occurring on those sidewalks or in those yards, that I'm fairly aware of it well before I get to it. You might notice my neighbors across the street from our house, they did a flower garden around their tree. And my days working at a tree crew with an arborist, I'm told that that's not good to cover up that section of the tree with less than natural airflow. But it does sure look good, and I wanted to actually go over and help him when he was doing those bricks. He's a hard-working dude, but of course, you know, we're all kind of supposed to be separating ourselves. So I came out and we chatted from across the street for a while. I think it gave him an opportunity, or at least I hope it gave him an opportunity to maybe take a little breather, because he was pickaxing at a root, I think, on that tree, trying to get his circle laid out nice and flat to where it would look real good. Of course, one of the advantages of living in the neighborhood is we do have a fair bit of brick and straight lines, so that allows you to see how the camera lenses reacts to looking at that sort of imagery or objects. I think it's a fair bit of footage. We've got a couple of minutes of the cloudy flight. Let's go into our nighttime footage. As we walk out of the garage, you might be looking for a camera comparison. So let's first just talk about this. So it seems to me that our nano cameras, or cameras in general, have just gotten a lot better at nighttime viewing. Now, in this particular footage segment, I will change it to black and white. So those who aren't initiated with what black and white looks like, and I previously spoke about that, you will get an opportunity to see that in this footage. But as I scan the neighborhood, again, no street lights, we have a pretty dark neighborhood. There's actually a section between the two houses that we're kind of looking at now, that area between those two trees, you can kind of make it out. You can make that out way better in the camera than I can with my naked eye. To my naked eye, it almost looks like an outline of those trees. And when I'm referring to the trees, I'm talking about the stump portion or the trunk portion of the tree, not necessarily the outline of the leaves that you can see against the sky. But that area is especially dark down over there. There's another section that we were already at by my trash bins on the far side of the garage. We take a look at the little bit of the landscape lighting to see what you can see there. Maybe there's something in particular you're looking for. I try to just kind of do a number of different things so that you can, you can compare it to your flying environments, whether that's near your house or if you have a shopping center or something like that, you might be able to grade out how it responds to different lights. And here's where we go into the black and white. And this is why I don't see that it's really useful. Now, I don't think it's as bad in this one as I've seen in others, but I don't see an improvement when it comes to low light performance, and it definitely had that feel of delay when I'm looking through the goggles and kind of moving around. So I think in most cases, at least in my experience with the cameras that I've been reviewing, leaving it to color on the setting is probably the best idea as far as using them for FPV purposes. And that section there gives you a little bit of a feel for why I don't go through all the different settings and make changes, because it would be a really long video, and and less than useful for most people, especially considering that most people only watch about 4 minutes of camera review videos, which we're probably already over. So the nighttime performance looked pretty good, so let's go for a flight. This section for my neighbors here, this is real dark, so it's a little bit sketchy in those sections where you really can't see the ground, and you see that I get a little bit high and almost run into some of the lower branches or leaves of that tree. You can't make it out really good, but I still think the low light performance of this camera is very good. I think I would have to compare it to the Foxeer Toothless 2 Nano to see how it bores out. This is pretty good. You can go back and watch the Toothless 2 Nano. If you're looking for a comparison, I'll need kind of a clear cut on which two. I really don't want to do a third one because my computer already has problems rendering two different DVR files side by side. It really struggles to render those out properly. You may have noticed that in the previous camera comparison video. So if we can pick two to do a comparison, I will work that out. It will take me probably about a week. It's fairly tedious to do those things, but I do understand that as a viewer or someone who's trying to make a purchase decision, you want to see a comparison between your top two. So if we have a consensus and people are calling for it, I'll work on it. I have another shot of the little garden area he put around his tree, and then we fly behind the neighbor's truck and we just kind of cruise around. This is about 9:40 at night, so it's dark. It's not, just sundown or anything of that nature. It's all the way dark. It's not going to get any darker, just to give you a little bit of more information about the time of day that I'm recording this video. Actually, I flew behind my neighbor's truck across the street and noticed that his tailgate was down as well as his topper was open, and I thought that was fairly odd. So after the flight, I went over and took a look, and sure enough, I saw what I saw in the goggles. So I rang their bell. I knocked twice because I know they have two young kids. One's about 10, one's an infant. I didn't want to wake everybody up, so if I could get someone to the door, then I thought, well, I'll go do that. So I knock on the door, nothing but dogs barking. I knock on the door again after a good period of waiting. More dogs barking. All right, it's time to ring the bell. Unfortunately, I didn't have their phone numbers, so I had to ring the bell. Still no one came, so I went ahead and closed it up myself, and then I went back to the house, wrote a note, told them, time, what I noticed, what I did, put my name and number on it, and then taped it to their door. I think the storm blew that note away because we had a storm that same night come through, and we had power outages throughout town and things of that nature because I haven't heard from them, so I'll need to see if I can make contact. I suspect nothing happened, nothing nefarious. They probably just left it open on accident, and then when it was closed in the morning, they didn't notice because it was closed as they would expect to find it. They have had their vehicles burglarized before. I think we have some teenagers or some no goods walking down the street in the warmer months late at night looking for opportunities to take something that's not there. That's a real long sample of the flight footage, and now we need to take a look at the settings for the camera so you can run through those. I'm going to do these fairly quickly. I'll try to slow them down a little bit, although I already kind of told you my story about the recording of this. So I don't know what I'll talk about while you're looking at these things. I'll need to come up with something fairly quickly. One thing we could talk about is who needs a haircut out there? Holy cow. The other night, I was teasing my kids at dinner time. Well, kind of teasing them because they didn't know what I was talking about, referring to getting a Flowbee so that we could do haircuts at the house, at least me and my son, because we're used to having shorter hair, and it's now been, I don't know, I'm a good 6 weeks past due for a haircut, and I got hairs curling up around my ears, and it tickles me quite often, and it's hanging down on my face. It's just not my thing, and it kind of makes me crazy. So I was telling the kids about a Flowbee, and they're like, what's a Flowbee? And I tell them it's clippers connected to a microwave, and it's kind of ridiculous. Found a YouTube video, showed that to them. They thought that was the worst invention ever, or, as the kids are, they're fairly extreme. They got a little bit of an introduction to that late 80s, early 90s QVC sort of fly-by-night invention. I do think we're going to buy some clippers. I've got to get this hair cut down. It's making me a little bit nuts. It especially bothers me at night when I lay down. I don't know how people with longer hair manage that. I guess it's just something you get used to, and I'm not used to it. Well, we seem to be getting near the end of the settings. Hopefully you've been able to see everything you wanted to see. I rarely get any questions about settings. In the last 2 camera reviews, if I counted correctly, I had 1 comment about needing to see the camera settings in a little bit of a closer or diagnostic sort of way. So hopefully you've been able to see everything that you wanted to see through the process of me yammering on, because in radio I learned one thing: no dead air, which I'm not especially good at. I only spent about 5 months in radio. There it is, the Runcam Phoenix 2 Nano. All our cameras are getting so darn good these days. It's really nice to have all these different options, and this one's blue, so blue is good. Blue is my favorite color if you're not familiar with my making fun of myself and my favorite color. This one comes in a little bit different price point. I see it listed on the Runcam website for $29.99. You may be able to find it at other locations for less, or maybe you have a coupon code or a discount code, or you have a gift certificate maybe that you won from a channel that you would like to spend at some other resellers, and I'll put links to who is carrying this camera in the video description down below. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise, please let me know in that section down below. I appreciate your time. Let me know if you want me to compare this to something, and thanks for watching.